Good evening, everyone. Natasha Pennycooke here on the Keep Six platform. How is everyone doing today? I'm just going to wait a bit, allow some people to come in. For those of you who don't know me, I am Natasha Pennycooke. I am the mental health advisor for Keep Six. Hey, I see some people are on. Hello, 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 everybody. This is great. So today we are going to be speaking with Abigail. Abigail is a trauma-informed yoga instructor, and we are going to be talking to her about mental health, about trauma. We are going to be talking to her about she was about to launch a program in the prison system as COVID hit. So it's going to be a really great discussion. She's going to tell us about what trauma-informed yoga is. She's going to tell us about what the program is that she was going to launch in the system. So I'm looking forward to today's discussion. Rachel is on. Hey, Rachel, tell everyone that you're here. She is going to be here fielding questions that you may have. Last week we had a great conversation with IJ from Get Dripped. Check it out. Oh, I got the sauce. I'm dripped. So I got one of IJ's shirts. I believe he got this custom made for someone, and he's a great youth, right? You guys really enjoyed that last week. Got some really great feedback about IJ. So today should be another great discussion. Again, I'm waiting for some people to come on. I'm glad, great, you guys are here. This is amazing. Let me know if you're excited for today's conversation. We're going to be Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. Rachel's on and she's going to be fielding the questions. Definitely feel free to connect. We are going to take time to answer everyone's questions as much as we can get to, questions and comments. Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, so let's do this. I think Abigail was on. I think I saw her jump on. So Abigail, we're just about ready to have you started. There are a lot of people in. This is great. For those of you who just joined, welcome. You're here on the Keep Six platform. I am Natasha Pennycooke. I am the mental health advisor for Keep Six. I'm a registered psychotherapist. Today we're going to be speaking with Abigail. Abigail is from the Devata Project. Hey, there you are. Come on in. If you could press the request to join, and then I could let you in, Abigail. That would be great. Can everyone hear me? Well, I don't have my headphones in, but I'm hoping that should be okay. I got some extra light here. That should be good. Okay, cool. Abigail has sent a request to join. All right, I'm just waiting for her to come on in. So again, remember, ask your questions. Rachel is here. She's fielding the questions. Rachel and I are also connected. So yeah, ask your questions. Just waiting for Abigail to connect and we should be good to go. I'm looking forward to this. Hey, Abigail.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
So good. I'm so excited for this right now.
Yeah, this is going to be great. Can you hear me?
Yep, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. How about everyone out there? Let us know if you can hear us. I know I'm speaking loud. My voice really projects. I can speak louder. I can speak softer. Let me know. You have some people, Abigail, saying hey to you. This is
Hi, Natalie.
great. All right, good. So I didn't really I let people know a little smidgen about you, that you're a youth, that you're here, that you doing trauma-informed yoga, that you were just about to launch in the prison system when COVID hit. So that's about a little bit that I told some people about you. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, let people know who you are, what your business is, and yeah, I'll let you take that away. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my name is Abigail. I am the founder of the Devata Project, and I am a certified 200-hour yoga teacher as well as a certified trauma-informed yoga teacher. So the Devata Project is a nonprofit organization that brings yoga, mindfulness, and meditation all under the trauma-informed umbrella to underserved communities and communities that don't otherwise have access to yoga.
Okay, great. Okay, nice. And yeah, so what is it that what other things do you offer? What are some of the offerings that and how do you pronounce it? Divata? Is it Divata?
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
a Sanskrit word, which means divinity. So it's kind of like the Divinity Project. And some other programs that we would offer. So we'll offer a 12-week program in institutions where I'm working with students. Before COVID, it would have been 15 to 20 students, maybe a little bit more for schools, depending on class sizes. And we do like a yoga class mixed in with meditation and mindfulness, perhaps some journaling, kind of just like an open floor base for our students to kind of express themselves and express what it is that they're going through and whatever it is that they need to kind of get out. The space that we hold for our students is just to come and to be.
Okay, okay. So you're probably very much aware, right, that yoga is it's an ancient Indian practice of self-realization. So how did you get into yoga yourself?
So I started doing yoga around 5 or 6 years ago. I had been a competitive cheerleader for over 10 years of my life, and I suffered a major injury to my body, which forced me to have to quit the sport that I had been doing and the sport that I loved. So I was really looking for something to do physically, like a workout. So I found hot yoga, and that was all I really was anticipating going into the class of just getting my body moving. And in my first yoga class, I remember in the end during Shavasana, where you're laying there after you've sweat, after you've put the work in, and I just could not stop crying because I realized in that moment that I had stepped into something that was much bigger than me, and that was something that was so powerful that at the time I couldn't really understand or put into words. And then it kind of just evolved from there. And I think that's what most people have the same sort of story with yoga, as it starts out being something to do for their bodies, and then it ends up becoming something so much deeper for themselves.
Okay, okay, wow. So I like that. I like that you went through what I would call like a traumatic experience, right? Like something that you used to cheerlead, and circumstances have it that you weren't able to continue that anymore. So you sounds like, you went into doing things that kind of like on a rehabilitation track for you and for your body, and then out of that something else came, which what you're doing now. Right. So you said that your programming was about to launch. Was it in the federal or provincial system?
So we had a few in schools, and then we had some programs lined up for some federal penitentiaries.
Hmm.
And that process in itself is very long. I had started the official process, I want to say sometime in December, to kind of get
Okay.
things started for the new year, to figure out what that looked like, because I already had been fully trained and all of my clearances had come back by that point. So I figured, why not just do it now and try and figure this out? And then we were right about to get one of our first programs in. We're about to get the numbers. And then this all kind of came up and happened. So we've had to shift to an online platform now of sharing through IGT videos, and what's going to be coming up for, we're going to be doing one-on-one interviews, sort of like what you and I are doing here, but like
Hmm.
podcast style, and then maybe even looking into online classes in the future. But
Okay.
yeah, we were just on the cusp of getting our program in, and then COVID unfolded, and then this has all kind of changed the game for yoga and fitness all around.
Right, right. And what about inside? I mean, you said you're going to you were going to do federal. So what has happened now, right, for going into the penitentiaries, the jail system, the prison system, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of contact has been very limited between
Hmm.
myself and administrators, because they're just not looking to put programs in right now based
Right.
on safety and all of those measures. So for me, it's just kind of looking at the CDC guidelines and trying to keep an eye and keep up to date with what's going on as far as things reopening, and kind of we'll have to potentially look at some ways to shift the program to make that work for the safety of everyone as best as possible.
Okay, makes sense. So let us know, what is trauma-informed yoga? What is trauma-informed yoga? Yeah. And how does it work in the prison system?
Yeah, so I think to talk about trauma-informed yoga, it's first really important to understand what trauma is. And the best way that I can explain what trauma is that trauma is unresolved pain in the body and mind after experiencing a major negative event.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of the times, most of us will hear trauma, and it might be that there's only a small group of us that experience it. And right now we're in a very specific time for all of us where we are all experiencing some form of trauma from COVID-19. And what trauma informed yoga does is it allows for the body to heal itself from those fight or flight triggers based on the way that the flow, so the way that the poses are sequenced in order from one another. Um, it's in the way of the teachings. So usually my teachings are the same in trauma-informed yoga and my public yoga classes. The main difference is really that the order in which the poses happen in trauma-informed yoga is very strategic to give the body that learning and that understanding of what it means to be calm and what it means to bring your body back down from that fight or flight adrenaline rush. And it's huge and so important to bring that into the prison system, because these are environments where people have experienced major compound trauma throughout the courses of their lives, and then being in that environment is traumatic in itself. So the ability for our students to learn to feel in their body the way that yoga can help and heal, not just through moving on their mat, but through maybe the way that it is that they think. Trauma informed yoga is really, really big to help mitigate those circumstances day to day for everyone's lives.
Okay. Okay, great. So what attracted you to trauma-informed yoga, especially going into the prison system? Because we know a lot of people have been using yoga as a form of practice, and when I mean practice, like exercise, things like that, right? Right. And when I say that, exercise really from like a Western philosophy perspective. So what kind of led you and attracted you to trauma-informed yoga specifically in the prison system?
Yeah, so when I was doing my own teacher's training, I was learning so many things about myself and about my own trauma triggers and my own um, life experience, and how that had been affecting every aspect of my life without me fully understanding and knowing that.
Mm.
So when I was in my first teacher training for my 200-hour, I realized how important it is for everyone to know these things about themselves and to know these things about um, life, and have an ability to shift their perspective. And I had made sort of like a promise to myself, or a promise to the universe, I guess you could say, that I was going to make yoga accessible to everyone across every community. And I left teacher training and I didn't really know what that had looked like. So I let it sit with me. And one day I was just scrolling on Instagram, like as you do, just like checking. And I came across a post from the Yoga Journal. And they had posted a picture of trauma yoga in a prison system in Santa Cruz, which was led by Prison Yoga Project out of the US. And I kept going back to this picture over and over and over again. Like I must have gone back like 30 times, just like, what is drawing me to this picture? What keeps pulling me in? And then all of a sudden it clicked and I was like, oh, this is it. This type of community is the community that is underserved so much, that needs these sort of these kinds of programs, and this ability to heal in the way that I have, because this is so universal. And from that point on, I was like, okay, let's go, let's do this.
Okay, cool. So, actually, I'm going to answer one of the viewers' questions now, or get you to answer it because it falls
Oh,
right
yeah.
into what you're speaking about, right? I don't know if you see that. So, Meg is asking, is there a course you have to take in order to be certified, specifically in trauma-informed yoga, and where? Where is that offered?
Yeah, so I did my training through Prison Yoga Project. They offer trauma-informed yoga, which would allow me to teach across all sort of institutions and facilities, but it does have a specific focus on teaching yoga and having it be a trauma from a trauma informed perspective in prisons. I ended up flying to San Francisco to take this training. They do offer it in cities all around the world. It kind of changes month to month. So I kind of just found one that had worked for my schedule. And I ended up going for my birthday weekend this past November. So it ended up being like a nice way to do the training and also see some new cities. There are some, if you're looking for things in the GTA, I know that there is another nonprofit called Healing Heroes, and they work directly with vets and like first responders. So that's kind of where their trauma informed practice is directed to. So they're Healing Heroes. That can be done throughout the GTA if you're needing something more local. They are a derivative of Prison Yoga Project in the same way that the Devada Project is.
Okay, great. So, Meg, I hope that answered your question. If you have an additional question to that, Meg, you could connect with Abigail
Mm-hmm.
after. Okay. So you said that you did this just in November past. So you're very, very new
Yeah.
to the practice of trauma-informed yoga and prison yoga and everything. So it sounds like you haven't actually gone into the system as of yet, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
November, you did the training, you did all your paperwork in December and everything. Um, so, you know, something that resonates with me is that there is a lot of controversy surrounding the practice of yoga, right? And namely that it is an ancient spiritual form of healing and practice and self-realization and actualization that originates in India. And right now, yoga is very much appropriated and marketed to Westerners for Westerners, right? And a lot of times the people who either born and bred in India or of Indian descent living now in Canada, you don't see them as much as yoga teachers and yoga professors of yoga, right? Usually it is marketed to younger white women, such as yourself, right? So how do you explain the implications of cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation within your practice?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And yoga is over 500 years old as a
Mhm.
practice. And
Yeah.
I think one thing that is important to explain, especially in prison systems and in my classes, is that yoga itself, the practice of yoga itself, is not religious. And being mindful in how I teach and what it is exactly that I'm teaching to show the basis of yoga and what it means, and really keeping in that the uh, eight limbs of yoga, Patanjali's eight limbs of yoga, as the center of what we do. That's kind of like our basis of what everyone can agree on that yoga is, and that's our relationship not only on the mat and how we move our bodies, but our relationship with ourselves and with others, and with the world and the universe around us. So it's important that in all of my trainings, we are talked we are taught, and when we talk about being able to understand the history of yoga and where it is that it comes from, and where it is that we stand in this practice as yoga teachers now. So it's important for me to be able to share those teachings from a place of how I understand them, and from a place of all of my other teachers, to kind of bring people together, because yoga is a bringing together of people in community and of people to themselves.
Right. So when you plan to get into um, the prison system, how are you going to be able to explain, like specifically that? I know I'm throwing this in from what you just said, but how are you going to be able to explain specifically that? Because one of the things that really resonates with me is that there is, right, a there's a lot of like privilege that you have going into the prison system as a young woman, as a white woman, as a yoga instructor, and also the privilege that you get to go in and teach and leave, right? And especially within the prison system, there's a lot of racialized people, a lot of racialized bodies, a lot of Black men and women, brown men and women, Indigenous folks as well. So how do you take the time to? I guess I'm asking you two questions there. How do you take the time to reflect on your own self as you're going into the prison system, as well as being able to reflect and speak about like the cultural implications of yoga?
Yeah, so I'll answer that in two parts. So the first part
Yes,
will be
please.
how I'm going to explain that
Hmm.
in programs. So I think it's important for when I'm teaching and when I'm in these systems and in these scenarios with racialized students, to explain in a way that everyone can understand.
What does that
So for
mean?
me,
Yeah.
some of the most basic practices of yoga methodology that I take every single day with me wherever I go is simply breathing and noticing my breath and being aware of my breath, and how can I bring my breathwork practice into my every single day life, because sometimes it's one day, 1 hour at a time. And I think it's relating the way that these yoga methodologies are laid out so that we can understand them on a human level for how it will work for us. And I think for me, when I'm teaching, regardless of where I'm teaching to my students as though we're having a conversation, and as though it's me and my students and it's us together in this space, and allowing for my students to have the opportunity to explain or tell me how they feel that resonates with them and how it feels from their experience. I think that that's sort of my biggest takeaway, and the best way that I can explain how we keep it culturally correct in the teachings and in the methodologies that we use, but how we can relate it to each other as an everyday thing. So that'll be
Okay.
my first answer to that question. And
Yeah.
then the second answer is understanding that my position in this world and in this society, being a young 23-year-old white woman, I've had advantages of being able to go to university and learn for myself different ways of thinking. And I've had the privilege and the ability of going to my yoga teacher training and learning and being in a space where I can learn from other teachers and their teachers and their teachers. And being able to even fly to San Francisco to take my trauma informed yoga training, not many people would be able to do that. And it's important for me to stay grounded in and understanding where that puts me versus so many of the life experiences of my students, whether they are racialized, whether they are of different sexual orientations or however it is that they identify and feel of themselves. I am in a position to take personal responsibility for the way that I see things and the way that um, um, I do better, and I help create a space that other people can use their voice and to come to be exactly who it is that they are and share their experiences and share their feelings on their mat, kind of to just use their yoga mat and their yoga practice as a medium to express themselves. I think that's what's important to me, understanding that I have this privilege and ability to go in, and
Mm-hmm.
also to then leverage that to other people, to give space for other people to just be the human beings that they are, to be the divine beings that we all are in a space together.
Yeah, okay. One thing that I noticed from being a therapist and working with people of all different walks of life is that I always need to reflect on myself and on my position as a therapist, right? And yes, I am a woman of color, I am a Black woman. At the same time, I do hold privilege, especially in the different spaces that I'm in, especially when I'm working with clients one-on-one. Here I am as a person that are coming to for help, so I always learn a lot from my clients, and I take the time to be able to reflect on myself and my position of privilege and my position of power. Someone asked the question, it looks like it's Meg again. She's like, how do you intend to engage those who are inside the federal institutions? I'm thinking specifically of male institutions.
Yeah, so the way that I would engage students is through a lot of the times we'll put up flyers or we'll send flyers through to administration to be able to spread the word, to get people interested in wanting to do these programs. And in a perfect world pre-COVID, we might have some sort of information night where I might potentially be able to go in, or where information can be relayed about the upcoming programs. And then when we're actually in a program setting, the way that it's set up is I'm not just standing at the front of the room calling out poses. We're in a circle, everyone's facing one another, and I'm doing the practice with them. So it's not like I'm just kind of standing there and being like a facilitator that way. I'm in it with them to again reinforce that I'm in this space with them, I'm in this space with you, and it's us on our mats. And if there's any like questions, we handle it in the class as the class is moving.
Okay. Have you ever been inside the federal penitentiaries?
No, so I haven't actually been able to go in to have any sort of experience or contact with who I might be working with as a student. That for me is something that I found very challenging when trying to
Hmm.
get programming in, was admin on the other side. It was a challenge for me to get through some of the like barriers that were existing to put a brand new program in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm really not sure what that's going to look like moving forward, but that was just some of the things that I had experienced difficulty with before trying to get a new program in as far as trauma informed yoga.
Right, right. And I'm kind of asking that as kind of to pick up on Meg's question, right? Because I'm hearing you say definitely about, right? We're all here together, we're in the circle, you're a participant as well as a facilitator within. So I'm wondering like what have you thought about, I guess, kind of like a script or what you're going to do and say, especially with some of the more male institutions, right? Like it's really great that you're going to be doing that in a circle. But really, like, how are you going to relate? And one thing about relatability that I have learned in my practice is like you really need to be able to speak with someone and relate yourself to that person. And I can imagine that some people may ask you, how can you relate with with some of the people who may be inside, right? And you knowing that you've never been inside yet, you don't have an idea of what it looks like. Like, have you thought about that? Basically, what I'm asking.
Yeah, I have thought about it like over and over and over again about what the conversations might look like. And it's important for me to understand and set a precursor of me going in there that I'm not there to help anyone. Nobody needs my help. Nobody needs me to help them out of whatever it is that they're in. That's not the purpose of this training. It's not the purpose of this program. The purpose of the program is to be there, to be of service to everyone else's higher good or everyone's higher good as a whole, and to be of service to everyone's divinity. Because just like the name of the Devata project, meaning Sanskrit for divinity, one of our major themes in the project is that we believe that we are all divine beings, and we believe that we all have and deserve to have a space to be that, regardless of whatever may have happened to get us to the point that we're at now. And as far as relating to my students go, it it really varies, class to class. No one class of mine is ever the same when I'm teaching public yoga or when I'm teaching my trauma yoga in schools. It's I learned in my teacher training that any person can stand up in a room and call out the poses. That's not the hard part about being a true yoga teacher. The hard part about being a true yoga teacher and to deliver these teachings and these messages is to connect to the students in the room. And although I have a very completely different life experience, having never even been into a penitentiary, that is something that I understand I'll never be able to fully sympathize or empathize with, but that in holding space to have people be seen and have people be heard will go such a long way in being able to relate on that human level, regardless of whoever it is that I'm teaching and whoever it is that I'm having a conversation with, understanding that we may come from very, very different life experiences, but that at the very core of it, we are both just like two souls looking for connection and community. And that is one of like the most beautiful parts of this practice and of teaching, is when I can see in my students having those things land. Because it's not just about me, it's about all of us. It's about something greater than what we all are.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. Okay. That's great. Um, we speak about trauma and trauma informed yoga, and you gave a really good definition of trauma, right? So many things can be traumatic, and nowadays there's a lot of instances of racial trauma, especially within the criminal justice system. So how do you understand the impacts of racial trauma, especially within the criminal justice system? I'm not speaking so much about the individuals who are there, but about the system in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we are living in a time where racialized people are, there is a system that is built upon the oppression of racialized people, and that shows up very, very heavily in the correctional prison system, based
Yes.
on the racial disparities on who becomes incarcerated and who does not become incarcerated.
Right.
And that is something that is so prevalent, not just in our society, but in these specific communities. And again, understanding that my experience is completely different from that, but that
Mhm.
in offering, as a whole, um, a lot of people in that are incarcerated have racialized trauma that have been compounded beyond generations.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's again this idea that it goes beyond every single one of us, and it goes years and years and years beyond these lifetimes that we're in now, to really work through the traumas that have been compounded over generations upon generations, and understanding that the history of the world and where it has been and it has led us to now, and the climate that we're in socially is a very, very important thing to understand before I even walk into a penitentiary to speak and to teach and to just be there.
Yeah, definitely. And you're right, right? There is definitely the intergenerational trauma in terms of racism and race. Um, However, that is actually it's prevalent then and it's very prevalent now within the
Mm-hmm.
criminal justice system, the educational system. All of these different systems have been set up not specifically for people who look like me to thrive, right? So being a woman going into the criminal justice system, having that awareness that the system in which that you would find yourself going into, that there's compounded trauma. On top of it, it's compounded trauma, but on top of it, it's current trauma. So it's
Yes.
not only things that have happened years and years ago, it's things that have happened years and years ago that might be in the fabric of people's DNA, passed on from generation to generation to generation, but also what is happening currently in our time, right?
Mm.
We all know about the young man in the States who went for a jog and he was murdered, he was killed, he was assassinated, right? So these are things in terms of from a racial trauma standpoint that are very much happening nowadays. So for you, someone had asked, how has this project really changed you? Um, yeah, that might be a good question for you to answer. How has this project changed you? How have you really opened yourself to be more reflective about the different traumas? Because there's so many different traumas, right? I mean, it could be from childhood trauma to sexual assault to a car accident to racial trauma to workplace racism. How have you really been able to learn and understand about the different impacts of trauma that have compounded people's lived situations?
Yeah, so this project has completely changed the way that I view so many things that I had not necessarily seen of the world before. It has opened my eyes up to experiences of people that I could not even begin to imagine, and understanding where my position in this world right here and right now is, being that the things that I experience are not based on, the color of my skin and what it is that I look like, that I'm in a system that doesn't, that isn't built against me. I think that that has been one of the most profound um, teachings for me through this project, and the profound teachings and connections that I've had with people who have experienced different things, or that from people that have experienced major traumas, through my teachings and through my talking with people and facilitating conversations, have been some of the most like life altering conversations that I could ever have, that I am um, really reflective on how I almost don't want to say lucky, but in a way it's not, it doesn't feel like it's all encompassing of what it feels, but to just be able to do this is something that is not lost on me, and it is something that I count my endless blessings for every single day.
Okay. Okay, great, great. So, why are you invested
Mm.
in trauma-informed yoga and in prison work? Why are you invested in it? Because a lot of people would not want, I mean, trauma in and of itself, myself as a trauma therapist, it's a hard place to put yourself in that trauma. And I don't know for you, but for me, it all, especially working with trauma and working with individuals who have a lot of different traumas and compound traumas and racial trauma and childhood traumas, it causes me to always stop and reflect and be very reflexive on what I do and what I say and how I walk and what I bring to myself when I do this work. And even afterwards, working with different people, right? Someone saying it is difficult. It does get difficult. So why are you invested in trauma yoga and especially within a prison system, working within a prison system?
Yeah, so I have myself experienced some major traumas in my life, and being able to look at those from a way that I had never seen as a possibility before through what I learned in yoga has been the greatest gift I never knew I needed. And it is very tough sometimes to be in this work to hear other people's experiences. And you're right, it is a very reflective practice for me, day in and day out, of understanding more about what someone else might be going through and how I can shift and change maybe my language or maybe the way that I approach certain things. That has been huge. But I think that what really makes me so invested is how beautiful this practice has healed myself over and over again. It's not like it's just been a one-stop shop, going to a yoga class and then that's it, I'm done. It's
Yeah.
been every single day me peeling back layers, or shielding them, and in working with other people, it helps to heal myself in ways. Learning and learning and talking and having these kinds of conversations have been really releasing of my own truths, and being able to speak about those after years of not being able to. So it feels very close to home, in a
Mm.
sense of just this this larger than me connection to people in a very open and honest way.
Okay. Someone is asking, does it ever bring back your own traumas, your own trauma experiences, your own traumas?
Yeah, so sometimes it does, and that's kind of where I need to be very reflective of
Mm.
um, maybe my own boundaries, or what it is that I am okay with being in or not. And at the same time, I think it's also important that um, it's I get the time to work through that, whatever I need to work through,
Mm.
and also knowing that it's huge for all of us as a collective to be in these discussions and be in this work together,
Mhm.
because eventually over time it just gets a little easier and a little easier.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's what happens, right? When you work with trauma and especially you're doing the body work of trauma, it can get heavy and it definitely could be weighing on you, but you being able to reflect on that daily and constantly. And I could imagine when you do get in, when your program does, launch and get off the ground and ends up going into the system, the prison system, that you will have to reflect because you will see things that you've never seen before, right? And you probably hear stories that you've never heard before. So it's like it will be like another layer of trauma. And I'm sure you know about secondary trauma and things like that, right? So that might be something that you would have to again reflect on.
Yeah, and having a really
Are we
great
there?
support
We lose you,
system.
Abby? I don't know if I froze or you froze. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, okay, great. So yeah, what I was just gonna say is that I have a really great support system in my fellow teachers and in the team at the Devata Project and my loved ones to be able to reflect and talk when I need to, and also being able to just kind of be a conduit for people's healing in a sense of listening. I think that's the biggest thing, is to just listen. And then bringing in my own practice of I know what I need, and being in tune with my own body and the way that it self heals through yoga movement and yoga practices. Again, going back down to some.
All right, so I think that Abby left. I think that we lost her. If she's able to get back in, sorry about that, internet connections and things like that, or it could be Instagram. All right, so I see that she's back. I'm trying to get her back on and just waiting for Abby to come back in. Keep your questions coming. I think we have about 10 minutes or so, everybody. So we'll see what happens if we can get,
Hey, can
hey,
you hear me
I
again?
don't,
Okay,
yeah,
great.
I'm not sure if it was you, if it was myself. Rachel was trying to figure out what was going on too on her end.
Yeah, that's okay.
Um,
I'm really sure, so I just like switched data and I think we're all good now.
Okay, great. I don't know. It could have been myself as well of trying to check on my computer and things like that. But anyways, we're back. I was just telling everybody that we have about 10 minutes. Yeah, some people are saying that it's freezing up. We're sorry about that. Connection issues, considering that it's evening time. Everyone is in their house. A lot of people are on lives right now, so that's to be expected. But I know that you were in the process of answering some questions. We do have some other questions. The questions keep coming in, and this is amazing. Um, someone was asking, what drove you to create the Devata project? She's never seen anything like it before. People are also asking how they can support the project.
Yeah, so what drove me to creating the Devata project was um, from my own learnings of yoga practice and yoga teachings, and how healing that was for my own self. This understanding that if only we could all learn these things, if only we could all share in these teachings, how much different would this life be for all of us? And I made it a mission for myself to figure out whatever that is, how it looked like. And that's kind of how I, in a roundabout way, came up with the Devata project. A pen and a piece of paper in a cafe, and I just said, "Oh, okay, this is it." Um, yeah, and then what other people can do to support. Um, I think engaging in these kind of conversations are huge, and we will be having a series on our project Instagram page at the Devata Project called Devata Talks, where I'm going to be interviewing people in our community, so we can have even more of these kinds of conversations. And I think it's huge that in teaching yoga for fellow teachers to reflect and see where their position is and where their position lies as a teacher, and how can they bring a little bit more of an inclusivity into their teachings and their own practices, and what that might look like in a way to have this bringing us all together.
Great. Yeah, that's definitely great. And I like that you talked about the inclusivity, because a lot of times yoga is not taught of so much as being inclusive, especially to marginalized communities or racialized communities. So you being able to recognize that your privilege and power position that you hold and still be able to do that is really big, especially that you have the desire to go into the prison system, knowing that the individuals that you may meet may not be the ones that are in the cafes or in the yoga studios, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Rachel. I'm seeing the time. So how have you, or how have you, and or how will you pivot your prison programming post-COVID? 'Cause people are talking about reentry right now, right? A lot of people are talking about different things are opening and things like that. So how will you pivot the reentry to include COVID-19 as a trauma to heal from?
Yeah, so I think that this whole global experience right now is really forcing fitness and yoga instructors and studios to shift the way that we have seen up until now. So for me, I think what that's going to end up looking like is smaller class sizes, maybe a potential reorg in the way that our classroom is set up for everyone's optimal safety and best interest, while also still keeping in that trauma-informed yoga perspective to the classroom, understanding that it is laid out in a very strategic way. And I think that could potentially even maybe look like video classes. We might explore what that could potentially look like. It will all kind of fall based on what the CDC guidelines end up being, and for us shifting maybe more online, or maybe it ends up being working with the families of incarcerated people until we're able to get fully programs in. It'll kind of just look like shifting to what we all need and what it is that we will be able to work with as far as guidelines and potential barriers that we might come across. But I think that providing a space for all of us moving forward to be able to heal from this is going to be very, very important for us to move forward as a society in a healthy and in a way that allows us to still move through with love, I think.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you said something that started making my wheels turning. It's a great idea to be able to connect with the families of those who have been incarcerated, because those of you who were on last week, we heard from IJ whose dad was also on, and he's incarcerated. And he's been talking about the mental health implications and how difficult it is being away from his family, right? So that as a trauma in and of itself, and those who are incarcerated do talk a lot about the importance of having their family there communicating to support. So and that's why I talk about COVID-19 as this global trauma. It's a global trauma, and it's impacting all of us the same and differently,
Yes.
right? So it's really going to be important for you to be able to pivot with the times and with COVID-19, and that may include families of those who've been incarcerated as well, like programming for families. That can be something as well.
Mhm.
Does anyone, I'm just going through my questions list. Thank you, Rachel, so much for sending me the questions. There was one question that I know I did not answer. Oh yeah, someone was asking, what is your favorite part of your job?
Oh my gosh. Try this one. My favorite part of my job as a yoga teacher and yoga instructor is when I'm in my class and I'm with my students, and in those moments in between when we're moving through poses, and a lot of the times I'll start speaking and I'll start saying just some teachings that I feel are important and relative to me and what I'm going through in that present moment. And sometimes I'll get like a laugh, or sometimes people will start to tear up or get emotional. And sometimes I get like those angry eyes, like, Abby, girl, why are you holding me here in this pose for like 10 million breaths? But even just seeing the emotion that it brings up in people is like it's like nothing I've ever experienced before. And it's a feeling that hits me so deep in my body and so deep in my core that every time it happens, I think, wow, thank God I'm doing this. Thank God this is what I do. Like, I'm so grateful that I even can call this my job.
Right,
So
right.
that's my favorite part.
Nice. So would you say that it's changed you?
Completely. It's completely changed me.
Okay, how?
I think it makes me more compassionate to myself, first and foremost, and more compassionate to those around me, and that we are not as different as it may seem like we all are. That there are so many things that actually connect us together. And when I'm teaching and when those teachings land in other people, to me, that becomes so evident that we may all experience those teachings in different varying levels, but they're there with all of us.
Amazing. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I'll go through actually one sec. That's okay. Let me see. We have about a few seconds. I just need a Kleenex for myself. Some people are saying that you're amazing. They're getting chills when you're speaking. Let's go through quickly some of the comments here. Thank you for answering. Great questions. People are loving this conversation. Great topic. Excited to see what this project goes on to do. So people have some really great feedback and really great questions and everything. Does anyone have any last minute question? I think we have like a minute or so that I could devote to questions if anyone does. While people may be putting in their last questions, Abby, let people know how to connect with you, how to support you, yeah, where they can find you. Let people know.
Yeah, so our main place where you can find us is on Instagram at the Devada Project. I think Rachel tagged us there.
Yeah, she
And
did.
that's kind of where you'll be able to find our email. Eventually, you'll be able to find our podcasts and all of those things that we've got in the works and coming up. And myself and the team are always available to answer any messages and connect with anyone who just wants to shoot a message or share a comment. We love to have those conversations. So I think the most important thing is just show up and be there, and we'll be there with you.
Nice. Okay, great. So doesn't look like anyone has any questions. Abigail, I want to thank you so much for connecting, for us having this conversation. I know that this is really some important work that you're doing from the trauma-informed lens, which is always important, and especially going into the criminal justice system. I know that there's a lot of people who can use the yoga, the trauma-informed yoga, and the fact that you're very much aware of some intersectionalities and privilege and power and things like that, and that you do your own reflection, which is really, really important. I think that's going to really help you propel you forward and do some great work. So hoping that you can get the project. I mean, you've started the project with your clients in the community, and I'm hoping that you can get the project up and running within the system, criminal justice system as well.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh,
Conversation
definitely.
to have.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation, and I'm glad that we had the opportunity to have this conversation.
Me
All
too.
right,
Thank you.
so again, people, you can contact Abby at the Devata Project here on Instagram. I think Rachel, stick in the link again for us, please. And yeah, make sure to follow Abby to see what her and her team are up to. Thank
Thank
you
you.
again, Abby. Have a good night. Thanks.
You too.
Bye. So great. That was a great conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Yeah, best of luck on your journey. Definitely wishing Abigail all the best on her journey. I hope that you guys enjoyed that. I think that was a great conversation. I think Abby did a really great job of answering the questions, especially that there are some power and privilege dynamics, especially going into the criminal justice system. Instagram is telling me I have 10 seconds. Next week, we're going to be speaking with Ray Reese, and she is a criminology and ethics teacher at Humber, and we're going to talk about racialized women in the prison system. Good night. Take care, everybody. Peace, love.